experimentation is, I think, the lifeblood of performance marketing. The thing that I see that companies kind of um, you know companies struggle with is the fact that they find something that works, they do it to death, and then when they're doing it, like, and they can only do that, and they've only spent their money doing that, and then whenever that stops working or stops, like, hits a ceiling, they're like, where next? And they don't know, and then they're really struggling to hit that next goal because they haven't experimented, right?
Hey, Experiment Nation, it's Tracy, and I'm with he's honestly a little bit of a blast from my past, and I'm really excited to record a conversation with him. His name is Joe Fitzpatrick, and he might also be known as the ad scientist in some circles. So thanks for joining us, Joe.
Hey folks, thanks for having me, Tracy.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you on here. This kind of comes all full circle because you are the first person to ever tell me that sample size requirements are a thing in A/B testing. And I
And
remember you telling me this, and it was like my whole world fell apart because I thought I was doing everything right. I was like, I'm killing it. I'm rocking this, and it just changed everything. So
oh,
thank you for ruining my life.
I'm glad that I get to be like a part of your journey to this, what you are now, and all. So
Yes,
yeah, I'm glad.
absolutely. Well, you've also had quite a bit of a journey since we last worked together. So, you and I both worked together at a fun little startup called Willful, and
Yes,
I was more on the conversion optimization side. You were more on the performance marketing or paid acquisition side, both
yes,
very complementary
yeah.
disciplines. Yeah, you've kind of gone off on your own and really done a lot since then. So, can you tell our listeners a bit about what you've been up to and why you started Ad Scientist?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been in the uh, digital marketing, performance marketing space for well over a decade now, and every time, I've joined a company and I've gone through the process and got quicker at going through it, and I've on the side I've been consulting, like, freelancing here and there with different startups, and eventually I just got to the point where I wanted something that was a sort of more a way to meet more companies quicker, because I feel like getting under the hood, seeing what's going on with different companies is the thing that I most enjoy. So rather than spending like my time with one company, starting my own agency to kind of have the ability to work with lots of different companies that maybe wouldn't be able to have a dedicated performance media person or like a marketing strategist in house, and being able to just to see all the different startups around Toronto or around Canada, and that I've kind of talked with since I've launched, and I'm in month 3 of Ad Scientist going live, and yeah, it's been worth it, just to have a company that I can kind of say that's like it's bigger than me. I can invite people to come in, collaborate with myself on, and yeah, it's kind of it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both went self-employed kind of around the same time, and it was so exciting kind of hitting this milestone at the same time as you. And one thing that I noticed about you as a performance marketer that I have not necessarily seen in other performance marketers is that you see a role for experimentation and testing, but in a rigorous kind of way, hence why you informed me of sample size requirements. I find that a lot of performance marketers just fly by the seat of their pants, and things like statistics just kind of take a back seat. And I know that data is a really big part of what you do in performance marketing.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the way I look at it, like data has so much of a story to tell. And from my first job in marketing, I've like been working with like the C-suite, and there was always questions, 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 and nobody seemed to have an answer. And then I kind of quickly realized, hey, you have a wealth of data within this company. It's not structured in a way that you can easily find answers, but if we drill in there, there is the answers to those questions that every company has. It's there, or it's
Mhm.
in the it's somewhere in the corners of the internet that you can get that like marketplace information or audience insight. So that's really what led me to kind of be very focused on data. And I think that if you can use data to inform your decision making, even if the data is sparse, even that the process of drilling into data and trying to find the answer clarifies the way you think about the questions you have.
Mhm.
And rather than it being a very simple broad question, you might try to refine what you're trying to ask yourself and what the business needs to understand. And that journey that you go on whenever you're interrogating data and trying to find data is kind of it's such a rewarding journey for me. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I also like I can relate to that for sure. Sometimes you come across an issue on, why does conversion performance suck? And then you do a bit more digging, you actually do some user research and you start to get answers and you can piece things together. So I'm sure it's very
Yeah.
rewarding kind of in that type of way. Speaking of rewarding, I'm going to like take the flip side of that and say I'm sure you come across a lot of reasons why ads don't perform.
Yes.
What do you think are the biggest reasons why that happens?
So there's a lot of different reasons that, like, every company I've worked with, there's probably been a unique blend of very similar things. Lack of insight into the audience is
Mhm.
probably the biggest one, because that informs so many other decisions. Whenever I join a company, usually I'll talk to the founder, the marketing team, whoever's there that's like dealing day in day out with the customers, and they'll all have assumptions about who their customer is. Um, but then I will kind of take that and be like, okay, this is the running theory of who the customer is. Now let's try to prove that's the case, right? And I won't lie. I'm not going to say it's like 100% of the time it's wrong, but it's not 100% right. If I
Mhm.
would say that.
Yep.
Um, so that's one of the biggest things that like stands in the way of companies having successful performance marketing, is that there's assumptions made because maybe that's what the product or the service was initially intended for, but
Mhm.
who actually adopts the product or service isn't necessarily the people you intended it for. There can be a
Mhm.
lot of happy mistakes along the way, right?
Mhm.
So one of the first things, so understanding the audience, and then from there, the creative is so important, but the creative should come from a deep understanding of the audience and what are their pain points, what do they value. And so if you don't understand the audience, you end up with like this like kind of like bland messaging. And the other side is people think that you ask companies like, who are you trying to reach with your advertising, and the question is, oh, everybody's our
Mhm.
audience, like
Mhm.
you'd be crazy not to buy our product or
Yep.
service, like like the minute you're born you should have our product. And that's just not the case, right?
Yeah.
So really, probably that I'd say, like, there's a laundry list of, like, the like technical implementation, tracking, all that kind of stuff that goes into performance marketing. And this with CRO as well, there's a million little cuts that you can have, like, in how you track and view your data, that could like set you up for failure in the
Mhm.
future, right? But I think the maybe the two biggest offenders are that, like, that too wide a scope and lack of understanding, and
Yeah.
also not challenging your thought process and not trying to evolve your thought process on who your audience is over time, which is, I think, a big part of experimentation and trying to like narrow in and find new audiences and stuff out there. um but yeah, a hybrid of those. And once you have both of those, like the too narrow or too wide and the lack of understanding, the copy sucks, the targeting sucks.
Yeah.
Like, nothing good can come out of this. And maybe you might get lucky and you have like a really good ad one time, but if you don't understand who your audience are and where they are, then you end up with a sort of like, well, it was a really good ad, but we don't know why.
Yeah.
Um, because
Yeah.
you can't draw a line. And it was like, oh well, it worked because of this reason, right? So
Yeah.
that's
So, how do you figure out who the audience is? How do you learn about them, get that insight on them?
so the first place I go to is like I talk to like the big stakeholders whenever I go into a company, like the founder, the like the product team. The people that I usually get the biggest insight from is customer support.
Yes.
Same, right?
Yes.
Those are the people that like deal with them day in day out.
Yeah.
So a lot of like chatting to them, getting their buy-in to kind of work with me to like because you can if it's all one big ecosystem, so if you can work together with those departments, like everything kind of clicks better. But
Mhm.
listen to a lot of their calls. Reading reviews if your company has reviews, like doing all that kind of research on the audience. And then after that, it's like looking at the company's data, as I mentioned before. So you have like most companies, like the long like startups, maybe they're limited by like the internal data that they have, but there's ways to supplement that with that external data, competitors, all that kind of research there. But the most valuable is often the internal data, and internal data could be the transcripts of like a Zendesk or something like that there,
Mhm.
and doing a kind of analysis on like what are the terms, what is the terminology my audience use, what are the big pain points, what are they disappointed by in our product or feature or whatever. um, and drilling into that and understanding how to like connect your CS data and your sales data and all of that and bring it into one place and look at it and again interrogate it. But also like again, you're starting with the 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 start sorry you're starting with the idea that was imbued with you from the owners and the people within the company, but you're always trying to like challenge that, like
Mhm.
that's your like, well, is this correct, is this what the data is telling me? And if
Mhm.
so, great. If not, why? And yeah, just starting that sort of process. And that's usually like my audit process is pretty thorough and usually comes out with a like a quite a small novella of like information about
Yeah.
the customer and about the company. That's usually like beneficial to the companies themselves, but like um, it sets up your performance marketing to be much more effective from the get go, because you can start off with a, okay, this is what I know, and this is what I think I know, and then let's structure our performance marketing to try to help us like solve this, right?
Yeah.
So that's my kind of take on it.
I love that you have voice of customer research in your process, like as part of your audit. I think a lot of people skip that step because it's easier to just, ask the founder, who's your customer? They tell you who they want to be their
Yeah,
customer, or
yeah,
like what you said, the person who has historically been their customer, but this may be outdated
yeah,
information. And you just, you go into Google Analytics, do a little, oh, where is the drop off happening? And that's kind of about it. That's at least what I've seen with other performance marketers. I think also this is why we worked so well together when we were both that willful. Because I remember we were both always hounding Courtney, our customer
oh,
support manager. Also, shout out to Courtney
hey
if
Courtney.
she's listening.
Yeah,
We would always be like asking her these questions about the customer. And then I do remember a few points in which we were sharing insights on the customer
yeah,
together because conversion and performance marketing go so hand in hand. We're
yeah,
finding out language that customers use because you would want to use that for keywords. I would want to use that for landing page copy, all these
yeah.
different considerations that I think maybe gets missed in performance marketing school.
For sure. And I think that's like, I think whenever you've got performance marketing and CRO like working so closely together and aligned, it's really powerful because CRO makes performance marketing work better, and performance marketing can contribute stuff that like helps CRO like kind of scale and move faster, and like the
Mm-hmm.
insights and understanding of audience targeting and stuff, like it's again, it's, you know, all the marketing, all of the company is one big ecosystem, right? They're
Yeah.
not disconnected, they're not siloed. So, you know, but it's where those handshakes happen, like the customer passes from performance marketing to CRO to, you know, email, and then to convert or whatever it is.
Yep.
You know, it's making sure those handshakes are like really solid, and you know what
Totally.
the information that's been passed through is, and why it's been passed through. So yeah,
Totally.
but yeah, we're like, again, like working with you in Willful, like that was such a like a, a great resource to have that so few companies really do have, is
Mm-hmm.
that like person who's owning like the landing pages and the website, and asking like, why is this like
Mm-hmm.
this, like is there a better way to do things, and having that sort of um like championing the audience and the customer, and like really trying to improve their journey and the value that they get. And that's a, you know, that's a big plus for any performance marketer to have that. So
Totally. I'm sure it's also, at least what I found is, it's so easy to work with founders who are open to accepting that their ideal customer is not actually who their current customer is, and they want to double down on who's already, making the most of what what the product is. And I think Aaron and Kevin, the founders of Willful, they were always open to new insight. They were not kind of stuck in their ways and, oh, this is our one customer. They always wanted to know, how can we reach more people, and who are these people? So
yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
that helps.
I mean, sharing those kind of insights where like there was a segment that would be a new segment we'd be targeting or something, I was always
Hmm.
really like gladly accepted. You know,
Hmm.
there are founders who, like, you know, in the first year of their business, like, oh, all of our like customers are early adopters. I guess our
Yeah.
customer is early adopters, and it's like, no,
And
that's
now.
not. Yeah, it's like, that's not
No.
how that works. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, that's like having a company that's willing to like change its thinking about who its customers
Hmm.
are also makes it a big plus, because there's a difference between who you want your customer to be and who your customer is, and how,
Totally.
yeah, I think that's just one of those realities that every company has to kind of has to meet at some point and
Yep.
get over. Yeah,
Totally. Well,
yeah.
kind of on the flip side of that, what do you think people get wrong about performance marketing?
I think so. There's a couple of like, I think that when people hear performance marketing, they think numbers, right? They think
Hmm.
it's like Excel spreadsheet. You know, I'll give you X budget. This is the CPC. This is the like. This is the conversion rate. Ta-da! Here is the output of that, right?
Yep.
And that is like, it's not like, we're not, it's not accounting, right? There is I think performance marketing like is very much about, like, you know, results, right? And I think the performance marketing has also had to change because of a lot of the updates with, like, you know, how much data you can get on a customer, and what sort of targeting you can do. It's not 2016. It
Hmm.
has changed, and I think for the better, because I think, first of all, a lot of the targeting you could do in 2016 was kind of creepy, and then like it was
Yep.
like, yeah, it was like, yeah, that's kind of creepy level of targeting you can do on people. But it's I think that, like, but the idea that, like, you know, I can just put in this formula, and, you know, if I want 10x my customer base, I just 10x my budget, and that's
Hmm.
how it works. There's so much more that goes into it. There is the creative element that
Hmm.
I really think that, you know, has had to come out more as people get more uh, blank to advertising, like the performance marketing ads, that direct response advertising that was so kind of like prevalent in performance marketing, like, you know, even 4 years ago, has had to change because you have to stand out. So there has to be a creative element there.
Hmm.
Um, it does play a bigger part. There is more like, there's a lot of understanding the like the channels that you're using with performance marketing as well. It's
Mhm.
not all, like that, and this is one of the biggest things I think educating clients on is like, just because two platforms are like paid social doesn't mean they work the same, or doesn't
Yes.
mean that they should have the same, oh, if we spend 5,000 on this or 50,000 on this, it'll have the
Mhm.
exact same impact when we spend it here. That's not
Mhm.
how it works, right?
Mhm.
That's probably a big misconception. Yeah, so I think that the inherent knowledge of the platforms is a big part of it. Not There's not one size fits all for performance marketing. Um, and then one of the things that I guess the biggest thing that always kind of troubled me about performance marketing. I worked in a performance marketing agency when I was younger, and um, I would be on calls with brand agencies, and very much the thought process is that performance marketing and brand are two, like oil and water, like
Mhm.
the two don't mix,
Mhm.
and that like and the things that you would do for brand don't have an impact on performance.
Mhm.
That's not the case. The things you can do that are common sense that you would do to boost like the brand trust and brand perception within a market has an impact on your performance marketing. Like, if you aren't collecting customer reviews,
Mhm.
you know, eventually once you're showing your customer reviews on your Google ads, that has a huge benefit to your Google search. Being able to share customer testimonials and reviews, huge benefit. Whenever
Mhm.
you even if you're not displaying your Google review score on your ads, people usually have this a very similar search pattern where they'll see an ad and they'll go, is this company valid? I'll just type in the company name. Oh,
Mhm.
there's maybe like 200 reviews here. Amazing. I will
Yeah.
trust this. Like, I will, and maybe they don't convert right then, but having that sort of third party check, and then next time they see your ad, they'll convert. Right? That's like a
Mhm.
three step process. But for some reason, whenever you're in performance marketing, the expectation is like, no, you just deal with the ads, the ad creative, the data, the
Mhm.
numbers, but don't suggest like, let's do something to boost our brand trust and those sort of, or have a good creative strategy that links in with maybe brand and other things. Like, performance marketing is one arm of your marketing, and should really link in with everything else. I think
Totally.
a big thing that companies kind of miss whenever they talk about performance marketing.
Yeah. I think that's a really good call out. I see the exact same, almost kind of like adversarial relationship between brand and performance marketing or conversion optimization, especially. And I don't know if you also deal with this too, but especially when it comes to copywriting,
Mm,
sometimes brand wants to use language that, is creative and makes sense for members of the team internally, but
yeah,
to the customer, it's like, I don't know what that means. Just tell me what this is. I have no clue what I'm even looking at right now. I
yeah,
I see that a lot in
yeah.
CRO. I don't know if you see the exact same thing with
Uh,
performance as well.
it's so like, whenever I'm doing audits of like ad accounts, or even like coming in like to a new team, um whenever you like whenever you're hearing their copy for the first time, you're reading their website for the first time with new
Mhm.
eyes. And I'll actually do this whenever somebody joins any team of mine, or is a new employer. I'll be like, can you read this and tell me, is this like internal
Yeah.
speak? Is this like jargon that we have made up and talked about in 50 different meetings to
Yep.
give make this page or this like
Yep.
product, but makes no like sense to the layperson.
Yes.
um
And that's why reviews and the customer support tickets are so important, because you might be selling something by a certain name and then people have no clue what that even means, but you have the answer
Yeah,
hidden
it's right
there.
there. Yeah, like they'll describe it, maybe not in such a like there's no pros going on there, but they'll
Mhm.
describe it as they see it, or how they internalize what your product
Mhm.
is. And it benefits you to like, okay, well, if I want to reach more of this customer who I know has used our product or service, I should use that verbiage like hit home what we do. Like
Mhm.
there is a point where the two should meet and I think mix and mingle. And I don't like when you're writing ads, good ads, like sometimes being too clever is sort of a hindrance to yourself. Like you have to ask yourselves, like you write something really like snappy and sharp, and you're like, yeah, but
Yeah.
like, is that true to my customer? No. Like you kind of have to like swallow that a little bit, and you'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm so proud of that copy, but it's just not
Yeah.
what the company needs right now. So yeah,
Yeah. Ego really does not serve us well
no,
in our lines of work. We really have to develop some thick skin and just
yes,
be like, no, I was wrong. It's fine,
yeah,
and just kind of move past it. But
yeah,
like, speaking of, we've been talking about assumptions. We've been talking about just performance marketing in general is a very experimental activity. You have to try a lot of different things and see what sticks.
yeah.
Where do you find experimentation plays a role in your performance marketing practice?
Experimentation is, I think, the lifeblood of performance marketing. The thing that I see that companies kind of you know companies struggle with is the fact that they find something that works, they do it to death, and then when they're doing it like, and they can only do that, and they've only spent their money doing that, and then whenever that stops working or stops like hits a ceiling, they're like, where next? And they
Yeah.
don't know, and then they're really struggling to hit that next goal because they haven't experimented, right?
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.
And even if that was like, even if it wasn't about like finding new sources of revenue or whatever it is, um, experimentation should be, the way you get better with your core audience as well. Like what I was saying with like finding who your customer actually is. That's experimentation day one, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
once I found out who my customer is, what language they use, I want to like check myself there, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to just like,
Yeah.
oh, I went away and I found all these great insights. Wow, good on
Yeah.
me. Like, I want to actually validate that against
Yes.
something, right? So experimentation to me is like I've found these insights and I've shared these insights. But now I want to really like make sure these insights are true for the entire. Like I want to see what the limitations of these insights are. Maybe it's true for everybody. I doubt it. But like there are probably limitations to how true something is for such a big population or segment of an audience. So from day one, the way I would structure my performance marketing is in a way to like to gain insights. Maybe not at you have these like optimizations you need to be making, and you need to be having like best ad copy, and you run those like multi-arm bandit tests and stuff right there, and that's giving you like
Mm-hmm.
which horse is getting over the finish line first, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a hypothesis and an experiment you want to run, if you think about like what copy crossed the finish line, and then you're running like 100 campaigns, and it's like, is that always true? Like
Mm-hmm.
you end up getting this, like if you structure your campaigns and accounts and everything in a way that whenever you have run many different small tactical tests in 6 months, maybe if it's a big enough account, like in a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever time period you want, you step back and you've got all this macro data, or like macro data that is like so rich because you've thought about what you want to answer and what's important to the
Yeah.
business from the get-go,
Yeah.
and you've tied that to like, okay, well, what's the business objective? Like, does it help the business to understand the audience better? Does it help the business to understand what positioning or features sell the product better? How does that, like sharing that information with the product team, help them like develop new products? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but you can, if you've thought about your performance marketing from day one through that experimental lens, and thought that in time I'll have a rich set of data to mine for insight, the company's going to be richer, and what you're able to do for the company is going to be so much more valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
um the way I kind of look at it is like, if you are doing that sort of like performance marketing without experimentation, there's only two results: there's win and lose,
Yeah.
where your ad worked or it didn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do performance marketing with the lens of experimentation, there's a third option. You lost, but you got an insight because you know why.
Yes. Now we're getting into test to learn, test to win. I love it.
Yeah, so like, I mean, in my eyes, if I can have if you were like a 3 card Monty thing, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you have two chances to win versus one chance to win, I'm going to take the two chances to win every time in terms of what I pick. But so if you can turn your losses into wins,
Mm-hmm.
that is such a like benefit to any business. So like, whenever I'm managing a team, I'm like, okay, what you've tried to do didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why didn't it work?
Yeah.
And if I can't get the answer of, oh, it didn't work because of this, then there was no value added to the company. But if they can learn like, oh, it didn't work for this and this reason, I'd be like, great, we won't do that again. Next time
Yeah.
we'll make even smarter tests and we'll do something else, and maybe we've like added 1% to the chance we're going to win next time. But do that again and again and again. It compounds success. So
Yeah.
maybe at the start it seems slow. It's like, oh, like, we're losing more often than we're winning. It's like, but we're losing and we're getting insights. So whenever the stakes are much bigger, because the stakes always grow over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the stakes are really big, especially with startups, like, they're like, oh, we got like one sale a day, like, hooray,
Yeah.
like that's. But whenever it's like, oh, we're getting 50 sales a day, and then you've also paired that with like, oh, and it's not a flip of a coin, it's a
Mm-hmm.
60-40 chance of winning. Then like that's where like you start to get that like big growth. That's where that comes in. And that's maybe that's the other thing that like I didn't mention about like what people don't get about performance marketing. It's a journey, it's a process. You buy into it, you have a strategy, and then you stay the course. Unless
Mm-hmm.
something comes like blindsides you out of the way, it obviously then it's like abandon ship. But
Yeah.
if you've got a path to walk, getting buy-in early from any founder or CMO, and just staying that course and knowing that that process in time will give you that growth you're trying to unlock. But you have to constantly be testing,
Mm-hmm.
always pushing at the boundaries and fringes of what works, and
Mm-hmm.
getting those small failures so that you can get a bigger win down the line.
Totally. I'm such a strong believer in like you will win eventually when you embrace the quote unquote losing
Yes.
tests. Like
Yeah.
those are not optional. Those are imperative to
Yeah.
have a successful. I'm thinking from the perspective of a conversion optimization program, which is again, it's so similar to performance marketing in that regard. It's not an option
No.
to fail. Like you have to. It's part of the process. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed this as well, but for me, the hardest thing is keeping trust with your client or your boss when
Yeah.
they see the flat results, they see the dips.
Yeah.
Do you have tips for anyone who is kind of facing that challenge as well to make sure the trust is still there and that the patience and the trust in the process is still there?
That is so like, that is a minefield, and
Yeah.
there's no silver bullet for that.
Hmm.
Like, really, I've found that the best thing, like, because I'll throw my hands up and say that didn't work, but I was like, well, at least we know it doesn't work, and
Yeah.
it didn't work for these reasons. And some people will take that as, oh, okay, like, march on. But some people will be like, oh, well, oh, maybe in another pair of hands, this would be like a success. And like, I think that's a real insecurity
Hmm.
that people have, that they can't, like, people only want to see the good, and
Hmm.
like, but that's just not life, right?
Hmm.
Um, you if you can, but I found that like, if you are very transparent, transparency is a big way to win a client over. So like whenever I like, go to a client, I'll be like, okay, this is the audit, this is what I found, and this, and now because of this, this is what we will do, and it makes sense, it's logical, and then over every step along the way, it's like, oh, we're at this step, this is what's happening,
Yeah.
and like if you bring them along for the journey and don't shut them out, and include them in your thought process, and say like, hey, this didn't work because of this, but if we do X, Y, and Z now, we'll get a win. And whenever they see X, Y, and Z happened and you got a win, then I go, oh, I think he might have something here,
Yes.
like, but like if you were just to go like, oh, we didn't win here,
Yeah.
but I'm going to do something, and then we're
Yeah.
going to win, and
No,
then they're
nothing
like,
to see here. Yeah,
yeah,
nothing
like,
to
oh,
see
it's
here.
sweepers under the rug. Don't think about it. And it's like, no, like, yeah, like
Mhm.
winning and losing is just part of life, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's you know, it's whenever you find a founder who is willing to like kind of embrace the process and understand, like, kind of respect the craft and the trade,
Mhm.
and just go along for the ride. That's a super valuable partnership to
Yes.
have, right? Um, because yeah, like you can go to anybody and just be like, do this and only give me wins, and if
Hmm.
you don't get me wins, I'll get the next guy who will only get me wins, and
Yeah.
then you just be in this treadmill, or like of like just hiring and firing, because
Yeah.
but like yeah, it's kind of a bad place to be and a very wasteful place to be, because you also lose all those insights that maybe the person was getting. So
Yep.
um yeah, I don't know. Is there a solution? No. I guess transparency and long-term planning. That's the
Yeah.
only two things I can think of. So
I think those are really, really, really good call outs. And they're things that you can just do for free anytime
yeah,
today.
yeah.
What else would you suggest that someone who's in performance marketing can do today to really level up their practice?
Oh, okay. So, like, I mean, like I could say like, blogs and
Mm-hmm.
exams, and all that kind of stuff, and there is a place for that. But really, I think like do is obviously a big one. The more you do, the better you get
Yeah.
at anything. Um, but also do with purpose. Like, don't just like. There's probably, maybe there's a like a junior performance marketer out there listening to this, and they are just going in, optimizing their client account, and then leaving.
Yeah.
And but like, and they're just looking at the like, the data sets that are in front of them. It's like, well, maybe just like, if you're in an agency or you're in house in a company, that's like, maybe think of like the bigger impact of performance marketing and all the things that touch on performance marketing, and maybe just start trying to think of like the part it plays in the bigger picture, um, and start thinking like asking those bigger questions, and asking yourself how how can performance marketing deliver more than just the transactional like focus of performance marketing. How can it actually make the company better in some more
Mm.
substantive way?
Yeah.
And like, I don't like, that's a very like there's not a book or anything I can tell you. That's just a really like, it's a state of mind, I guess, or
Yeah.
like a yeah. I don't
I
have a
gotta
good
say,
answer.
you broke down some real poetry in this episode. I was not expecting that.
Really?
I'm gonna call it Joetry.
Oh,
It was
really?
very Joetic.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this is a really great conversation, and I like personally, you didn't work with me when I was doing performance marketing, but I was so bad at it, Joe. Like, because I had that mindset of, oh, it's just dollars in, dollars out. You get the
Yeah,
spreadsheet, that's it. So
yeah,
you really kind of showed me, and hopefully our listeners too, that there's so much more to performance marketing or running ads that's very similar to experimentation and just the mindset around understanding your users. So, thank you
yeah.
so much for breaking all that down. I saved the hardest questions for last. What do you have going on that you want to share with our listeners? What should they know about
Well,
Joe?
well, what should they know about Joe? I mean, the launch of Ad Scientist is really the newest thing with me. I think that is my kind of baby for at the moment,
I
and
was just
just
thinking that.
yeah, I really don't know how much more I'm willing to take on than launching a company at the moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm really enjoying working with a lot of fantastic companies and founders, and people at just different stages of their journey. So yeah, I mean that's always exciting, and I think just the more that I'm able to meet and even if it's even just good conversations. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I've enjoyed since launching my own thing is like meeting the other founders and just having chats about what are the roadblocks that are hitting them. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the exciting road in front of me right now. So,
Nice. Where can our listeners reach you?
so you can reach me either on LinkedIn or on adscientist.ca.
Awesome.
So, yeah, great.
I love your website. You've got your dog Velma in there. I
Yeah.
love her. She's so
Oh, she
cute.
like, of course, she like. There was no way there was going to be a website without her like, face in there somewhere.
Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Joe. It's been really nice catching up with you, and we'll catch you around.
yeah. Thanks for having me. Have a good rest of your day.
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week, we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.